To teach is to touch a life forever. I got that quote from a decoration in my mom's classroom, but that doesn't mean it isn't true. A good teacher does much more than just educate. They also impact a student's life in ways they don't understand until they're older. Mr. Engel is a great example of this phenomenon. I had him for 8th grade science, and he changed my life in a profound manner. He did this by incorporating exciting lessons in his teaching. He also used his insightful personality to motivate me. Mr. Engel used his passion and deep wisdom to teach and encourage me about not only science, but also life. Mr. Engel always made sure his classes were engaging. He did this by dressing up as substitutes, having fun activities for those with their work done on time, and lessons that occasionally bordered on dangerous. So these substitutes I mentioned, they were often famous scientists from history, but he would mix it up occasionally too. I remember his lesson on the structure of atoms particularly fondly. I walked into class that day and found him at the door, dressed as a gangster and greeting people, claiming to be not in fact Mr. Engel, but our substitute teacher. That class period, he told us all the story of his hood. He had everyone laughing and participating, which is an incredible feat given some of the people in that class. And although his method was strange, it was effective too. I still remember that lesson. Then there were the fun activities he had for those with their work done on time. I remember when he assigned 100 pages to read and take notes on, overnight. I was the only one who actually did the work. So, for the rest of the week, while everybody else in my class finished the assignment, I got to play with his Google glasses. That was a fun time. Then, there were the moments when his lessons bordered on hazardous. This is a memory from the very first days of class before we knew what we were in for. Picture this. Mr. Engel stands in the middle of the lab area, talking about fire safety. To his immediate left sits Krista, math homework in front of her. All of a sudden, Mr. Engel pulled out a match and lit her paper on fire. Paper ablaze, the fire extinguisher was shoved into her unprepared arms. Had she been expecting this, it would have been easy to put it out in time. Alas, it was all but consumed by the time she put it out. She certainly learned how to use a fire extinguisher that day, though. Despite being a little odd in that regard, Mr. Engel is surprisingly wise. He used his extraordinary insight to encourage me to do something greater with my life. He seemed to have this infinite font of wisdom to draw upon, and he would impart that on all who wanted to hear it. This is where Mr. Engel really begins to mean more to me than just some fun teacher. He may have been hired to teach science, but Mr. Engel made it his duty to teach life. I remember the last day of middle school. Even before I walked in, I could tell it was going to be an emotional hour, as most of the people leaving his room were crying. I followed the instructions on the smartboard as usual, which were to take a seat in the lab area. Class started soon after that, and right away something was different. Mr. Engel, usually wisecracking and smiling, was serious that day. He gave deep, personal advice to everybody around the room, and eventually got around to asking the question to each of us, what do you want to do with your life? I still remember what he said to me. I had responded to his question with, I want to invent something that will change the world. He pondered for a moment, and then responded with this, that he believed in me, that he would come and see me when I achieved that goal, and because this is Mr. Engel we're talking about, he would accidentally press the button that started the apocalypse. That day inspired me. I want to learn more science, not only because it's fun for me, but also because I know I can use it to change the world. Because of him, I know what God created me to do. That's why he means so much to me. That day, the last day of school. Mr. Engel had enthusiasm and great wisdom, which he used to teach and encourage me about both science and life. He always made sure his lessons were exciting. He He also was a little quirky, but who was full of wisdom, and he passed that on, thus inspiring me. Mr. Engel didn't just change my life, he impacted it, the way a massive asteroid crashes into a planet. It altered my world forever.